My name is Amanda Parker, and at 32 years old, I thought I knew exactly where my life was headed. After 10 years of pouring my heart into Parker Family Construction, armed with my business degree, and as VP of Operations, I was blindsided. "You're not leadership material," my parents said as they handed the company to my younger brother Michael instead. I never thought I'd see my father Robert begging for my help just 1 week after I walked away. But when he did, I simply said, "Before I dive into my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, and if my story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel." Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Let's explore what happened when my parents learned the hard way about my true value. Growing up in the Parker household meant growing up in the construction business. My earliest memories involve sitting on my father's lap in his office, scribbling on the backs of blueprints while he took calls. By age 8, I was visiting job sites on weekends, wearing a tiny hard hat my father had custom made with our company logo. Unlike other little girls who played with dolls, I was fascinated by the transformation of empty lots into beautiful buildings. The smell of fresh lumber and the symphony of power tools felt like home to me. "Amanda has the Parker eye," my father would proudly tell clients when I'd point out interesting architectural details. Those early compliments fed my passion, and by high school, I was certain the family business would be my future. I took every relevant class I could find, from advanced math to business management, positioning myself for success. During my senior year of high school, when my guidance counselor, Mrs. Hamilton, asked about my college plans, I didn't hesitate. Business administration with a focus on construction management, I told her confidently. "I'm going to run Parker Construction someday." She smiled approvingly, helping me research the best programs in the country. I graduated at the top of my class from Northwestern University, earning my MBA while simultaneously working part-time in various departments at Parker Construction during breaks and summers. Those years were exhausting but fulfilling, as I learned every aspect of the business from the ground up. You need to know how to do every job before you can effectively manage people doing those jobs, my father always said. I took his advice to heart, spending time with our crews, learning estimating from our senior project managers, and absorbing everything I could about the financial side from our accountants. After graduation, I formally joined the company full-time. Starting in project management, I quickly proved my worth by bringing in 3 major projects under budget within my first year. By 25, I was overseeing multiple project teams, and by 28, I had been promoted to Vice President of Operations, responsible for the day-to-day functioning of our $50 million business. During my decade with the company, I implemented a modernized project management system that increased efficiency by 30%. I cultivated strong relationships with our subcontractors, securing better rates that improved our profit margins. I personally developed our sustainability initiative that opened doors to lucrative government contracts. The employees respected me, clients trusted me, and suppliers were always eager to work with us because of the systems I put in place. My brother Michael, 2 years younger than me, took a different path. He obtained a marketing degree from a state university, then spent several years bouncing between various marketing positions at different companies. While I was at the office before sunrise and staying until well after sunset, Michael would occasionally stop by for family lunches, charming everyone with his easy smile and casual attitude toward work. When he finally joined Parker Construction at 27, he was given the title of marketing director without having to climb the ranks like I had. He handled our social media, designed some brochures, and attended networking events, but rarely engaged with the operational challenges that kept our business running. My parents, especially my father Robert, came from a generation where construction was considered a man's world. Despite my mother Catherine's role as the company's financial controller, there were numerous comments over the years that hinted at their traditional views. "Clients feel more comfortable seeing a man in charge," my father would say when I questioned why Michael was sent to certain meetings despite my greater technical knowledge. "Construction crews respond better to male authority," my mother would echo, despite evidence to the contrary, when our workers consistently executed my plans with precision and respect. Still, I believed that competence would ultimately win out. I assumed that my proven track record would make me the obvious choice to take over when my parents retired. After all, I had sacrificed personal relationships and outside interests to dedicate myself to Parker Construction, while Michael maintained an active social life and took frequent vacations. In recent months, there had been whispers about succession planning. I noticed closed-door meetings between my parents and our company lawyers. Michael seemed to be included in discussions from which I was conspicuously absent. When I directly asked my father about the future leadership of the company, he would pat my hand and say, "All in good time, Amanda. We're still figuring things out." The uneasy feeling in my stomach grew stronger when I overheard my mother on the phone with our family attorney, Jessica. "We need to prepare for how to break the news to Amanda," she said in a hushed tone. "It won't be easy, but Robert and I are in agreement about Michael." That evening, as I drove home to my modest condo, I tried to convince myself I had misunderstood. After all my years of dedication, surely they wouldn't pass me over for leadership in favor of my less experienced brother. Would they? The call came on a Tuesday evening. "Your father and I want to have a family dinner tomorrow night," my mother said. "We have something important to discuss about the company's future." My heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. This had to be about the succession plan. I spent that night preparing notes about my vision for Parker Construction's future, excited to finally have the conversation I'd been waiting for. Wednesday evening arrived, and I showed up at my parents' suburban home armed with my tablet containing a 5-year growth strategy. Michael's sports car was already in the driveway when I arrived. The formal dining room was set with my mother's best china, a bottle of expensive champagne chilling in an ice bucket. "What's the occasion?" I asked as I helped my mother Catherine bring serving dishes to the table. "Your father has an announcement," she replied with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Throughout the appetizer course, we made small talk about recent projects and industry gossip. My father seemed unusually jovial, refilling wine glasses and reminiscing about the early days of the business. By the time the main course was served, I couldn't contain my curiosity any longer. "Mom said you have an announcement about the company, Dad?" Robert Parker straightened in his chair, placing his napkin beside his plate with deliberate precision. "Yes, Amanda. As you know, your mother and I have been discussing our eventual retirement and the future leadership of Parker Construction." I nodded eagerly, fingers itching to pull up my prepared notes. "We've decided that Michael will be taking over as CEO when we step back next year." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked around the table, certain I had misheard. Michael looked down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. My mother busied herself, rearranging the silverware beside her plate. "I don't understand," I finally managed. "I'm the VP of Operations. I've been with the company for 10 years. I have the education, the experience." "Amanda," my father interrupted, his tone patronizing. "It's not about years of service or your MBA. Running a construction company requires a certain type of leadership presence that, frankly, you don't possess." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, my voice growing cold. My mother jumped in. "Honey, you're wonderful with details and processes. That's why you're so good at operations. But the CEO role requires big-picture thinking, commanding respect from tough construction crews, and having the confidence to make difficult decisions. And I haven't demonstrated those qualities in the past decade?" I asked incredulously. "It's different," my father insisted. "The clients in our industry expect a certain type of person at the helm. Michael has the natural charisma and presence that our clients respond to." "You mean they expect a man?" I said flatly. My father's expression hardened. "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant," I countered. "I've brought in more new clients than anyone else in the company over the past 5 years. I've maintained relationships with our biggest accounts. I've personally saved the Watson project when it was on the verge of collapse." "Amanda," my mother interjected, "nobody is questioning your contributions. This isn't about competence. It's about leadership style." I turned to Michael, who had remained suspiciously quiet. "And what do you think about this?" He finally looked up, his expression a mixture of guilt and excitement. "I think I'm ready for this opportunity. I have some great ideas for taking the company in new directions." "Such as?" I challenged. Expanding into residential developments, creating a stronger social media presence, maybe even a reality TV segment showcasing our high-end projects, he offered. I nearly laughed. Have you considered how we'll finance these expansions? Or the impact on our existing project management systems? Or whether our current staff has the bandwidth? See, that's exactly what I mean, my father interrupted. You're immediately diving into the minutiae instead of embracing the vision. That's why you're not leadership material, Amanda. The phrase stung like a slap. 10 years of dedication reduced to not leadership material. We have an opportunity for you, though, my father continued, his tone suggesting he was offering me a great gift. We want you to stay on as COO, reporting to Michael. You'd handle all the operational details while he focuses on the company's direction and client relationships. You want me to work for my younger brother? After I've essentially been running the company operations for the past 3 years? It's a prestigious position, my mother argued, and your salary would increase by 15%. I pushed my barely touched dinner away. This isn't about money. This is about recognition of my contributions and abilities. I think you're being emotional, my father said dismissively. This is business, not personal. How is passing over your more qualified daughter for your son not personal? I demanded. My mother sighed dramatically. We knew you would take it this way. This is exactly the kind of emotional reaction that confirms our decision. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. So advocating for myself when treated unfairly is emotional, but when Michael does it, it's leadership. Amanda, please sit down, my father commanded. We're not finished discussing this. I think we are, I replied, gathering my purse and car keys. You've made your decision very clear. Don't do anything rash, my mother called as I headed for the door. Sleep on it. You'll see this makes sense for everyone. I paused at the doorway. 10 years. I've given this company 10 years of my life, missing friendships, relationships, and opportunities because I believed I was building something for my future. I won't make that mistake again. I drove home in a blur, tears streaming down my face. The betrayal cut deep, not just professionally, but personally. My own parents didn't believe in me, despite all evidence to the contrary. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my condo, replaying every conversation, every project, every milestone in my career, searching for what I had missed. Had I truly been deluding myself all these years? I pulled out my laptop and began researching construction companies in the area, updating my resume for the first time in a decade. As the sun rose, I made my decision. I wouldn't stay to be humiliated daily, watching my less qualified brother fumble through a role I had earned. It was time to walk away. Thursday morning, I arrived at Parker Construction headquarters earlier than usual, before most employees arrived. I went straight to my office and drafted my resignation letter, printing 2 copies. One for HR, one for my father. By 9 o'clock, I requested a meeting with my father and Samantha Lewis, our longtime HR director. They both appeared surprised by the urgency in my voice. I'll make this brief, I said once we were seated in my father's office. I slid the resignation letters across the table. I'm resigning, effective immediately. My father didn't even look at the letter. Amanda, don't be ridiculous. You're upset about last night, I understand, but this is a massive overreaction. Robert, Samantha interjected, scanning my letter with a frown. I think Amanda is serious. This is childish, he scoffed. Taking your ball and going home because you didn't get your way. I kept my voice steady. I'm not leaving because I didn't get my way. I'm leaving because after 10 years of demonstrated excellence, you've made it clear there's no future for me here that matches my capabilities or ambitions. We offered you a substantial role, he argued. You offered me a demotion disguised as a promotion. I corrected him. I would be doing the same work I do now, possibly more, while reporting to someone with significantly less experience and knowledge. You'll be back, my father said dismissively. When you calm down and think this through logically, you'll realize what you're throwing away. I've already thought it through, I replied. My decision is final. Samantha spoke up. Amanda, Would you be willing to stay for a transition period? 2 weeks is customary. I've documented all my current projects and processes thoroughly, I explained. My team knows what they're doing. A transition period would just prolong an uncomfortable situation for everyone. My father stood up, anger finally breaking through his condescending calm. So that's it? 10 years, and you just walk away without a second thought about the family business. That's the thing, Dad, I said quietly. You made it clear last night that it isn't my family business after all. It's Michael's. I left him sputtering as Samantha escorted me to her office to complete the exit paperwork. Once the door closed behind us, her professional demeanor softened. Off the record, Amanda, I think they're making a huge mistake, she confided. You're the backbone of this company's operations. Thank you, Samantha. That means a lot. Where will you go? She asked. I'm not sure yet, but I have a good reputation in the industry. I'll land on my feet. After completing the paperwork, I returned to my office to pack my personal belongings. Word had spread quickly, and several employees stopped by, expressing shock and dismay at my departure. Is it true? Asked Rachel from accounting, hovering in my doorway. You're leaving today. It's true, I confirmed, carefully wrapping the framed photo of my first completed project. But why? What happened? I chose my words carefully. It's time for me to pursue other opportunities. As I filled a cardboard box with awards, certificates, and personal items, Thomas Anderson, our senior site foreman, appeared in my doorway. Tell me the rumors aren't true, he said gruffly. I gave him a sad smile. I'm afraid they are, Thomas. The burly man crossed his arms. This is about Michael taking over, isn't it? I didn't confirm or deny, but my expression must have said enough. Your father's making a mistake, Thomas said bluntly. The crews respect you. You understand what we need to get the job done. Michael wouldn't know a load-bearing wall from a picket fence. He'll learn, I said diplomatically. Thomas snorted. Maybe. But the Brunswick Road project is already behind schedule, and the Madison Street renovation is having supply chain issues. Without you coordinating everything. He trailed off meaningfully. I've left detailed notes, I assured him. And you know what you're doing, Thomas. It's not the same, he insisted. You mark my words, they'll realize what they've lost within a week. I appreciated his vote of confidence, but didn't comment further. I had no intention of bad-mouthing the company or my family on my way out. By noon, I had cleared out my office and turned to my company phone, laptop, and building access card. I declined the traditional farewell lunch, preferring a clean break. As I walked to my car carrying my box of belongings, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. That afternoon, I called Eleanor Simmons, my former business professor who had become a mentor over the years. We met for coffee at a small cafe far from Parker Construction's usual haunts. They did what? Eleanor exclaimed after I explained the situation. With your track record and qualifications? Apparently, I'm not leadership material, I said, the phrase still bitter on my tongue. That's absurd, she scoffed. I've used your project management strategies as case studies in my advanced classes for years. Tell that to my parents, I sighed. Eleanor studied me over her coffee cup. So, what's your next move? I'm not sure yet. I could probably get a position with another construction firm, but part of me wants to start fresh completely. You know, Eleanor said thoughtfully, this might be the push you needed. You've always had entrepreneurial instincts. Maybe it's time to consider starting your own firm. The idea had crossed my mind during my sleepless night, but hearing Eleanor suggest it gave it more weight. The next few days were a blur of adjusting to unemployment. I slept past 6 a.m. for the first time in years. I updated my LinkedIn profile and reconnected with industry contacts. Several reached out immediately upon seeing my status change, including Gregory Winters, a former client who now ran his own property development company. Let me take you to lunch, Gregory insisted over the phone. I've been trying to poach you from Parker Construction for years. Now's my chance. Over an expensive lunch downtown, Gregory didn't waste time with small talk. I need someone to oversee my construction operations. The position is yours if you want it. I appreciate the offer, I said sincerely. But, he prompted, reading my hesitation. But I'm considering all my options, I admitted, including starting my own construction management firm. Instead of being disappointed, Gregory looked intrigued. Interesting. Would you consider a partnership arrangement? Your expertise combined with my development projects could be mutually beneficial. That's worth exploring, I agreed. Throughout our lunch, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from former colleagues. Reading them later, I learned that chaos had descended upon Parker Construction almost immediately after my departure. Michael had moved into the CEO office, but seemed overwhelmed by the volume of decisions requiring his attention. Projects were stalling, clients were getting frustrated, and the carefully crafted systems I had implemented were beginning to unravel without someone who truly understood them at the helm. I felt a twinge of satisfaction but also genuine concern for the employees whose livelihoods depended on the company's success. Still, this wasn't my problem anymore. My parents and brother had made their choice, and now they would have to live with the consequences. I hadn't intended to keep tabs on Parker Construction after my departure, but the construction industry in our city was relatively small. Information flowed freely between projects, suppliers, and competing firms. Within days, I began hearing reports about the company's rapid decline. Jessica Martinez, who worked in permitting at City Hall, called me 4 days after I left. Amanda, what on earth is happening at Parker? Tyler Wilson just submitted plans for the Riverside project with multiple code violations. When I asked who reviewed them, he said he was new and Michael signed off without checking. Tyler was Michael's college friend who had suddenly been promoted to project manager despite having no construction experience. I winced at the news but simply replied, "I'm not involved with Parker Construction anymore, Jessica." "Well, whoever is reviewing plans now needs remedial training," she sighed. These would never have left her desk with these errors. Later that same day, I received a text from Brian, our lumber supplier. "Your brother just tried to order materials for Lakeside Heights at last year's contracted price. Had to explain inflation and new rates." He seemed shocked. "Everything okay there?" The most concerning news came from Victoria Marshall, CEO of Marshall Medical Centers and one of Parker Construction's biggest clients. She called me directly on my personal cell. "Amanda, I've just had the most concerning meeting with your brother," she began without preamble. He was completely unprepared to discuss the timeline for our new urgent care facility. When I asked about the cost overruns on the foundation work, he actually said he'd have to circle back after consulting with someone who understood the numbers. "I'm sorry to hear that, Victoria, but I'm no longer with Parker Construction," I explained. There was a pause. "Since when?" "Since last week." "That explains a lot," she said. "Amanda, we signed with Parker because of your reputation for attention to detail and transparent communication. Our $20 million project is already showing signs of mismanagement after just 1 week without you. I'm sure they'll get things sorted out," I said diplomatically. "Perhaps," Victoria replied, her tone making it clear she didn't believe it. "But I should inform you that our contract includes a clause allowing us to reevaluate if key personnel leave the project. I'm meeting with my board tomorrow to discuss our options." The news continued to flow in. Thomas texted that 3 foremen were threatening to quit after Michael implemented a new scheduling system that ignored the practical realities of construction sequencing. Samantha from HR called to ask if I had documentation about certain employee accommodations I had approved, as Michael was questioning their necessity. According to Linda in accounting, suppliers were tightening their credit terms without me as the relationship manager. The 30-day payment windows I had negotiated were reverting to stricter terms, creating cash flow challenges. I heard from multiple sources that my father was increasingly present on job sites, attempting to micromanage situations that were spiraling out of control. My mother was apparently blaming market conditions and transitional adjustment period, rather than acknowledging the leadership problem. 7 days after my departure, the situation reached a crisis point. Gregory, who maintained connections with Parker Construction through mutual subcontractors, met me for coffee with the latest update. "The Brunswick Road project is officially behind schedule," he reported. "Thomas says they've missed 3 critical milestones already. The penalty clauses in that contract will start kicking in next week to the tune of $10,000 per day. That project was already running on tight margins, I noted with concern. That's not all, Gregory continued. Victoria Marshall has apparently given them an ultimatum. Either demonstrate competent project management for her medical center by Monday, or she's invoking her exit clause and taking the project elsewhere. That would be devastating, I murmured. The Marshall Medical Center was not only their largest current project, but would have led to multiple future contracts. Word is that Michael is completely overwhelmed, Gregory added. He apparently locked himself in his office yesterday after a supplier threatened to pull all their equipment from the West Side renovation. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for my brother. He hadn't asked for this responsibility, at least not originally. Our parents had thrust him into a role he wasn't prepared for, setting him up for failure while simultaneously undermining my career. That evening, as I was reviewing a proposal Gregory had drafted for our potential partnership, my phone rang. My father's name appeared on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I declined the call. Minutes later, a text appeared. Amanda, we need to talk. The company needs you. Please call me back. I set my phone aside without responding. They had made their choice. Now they would have to live with the consequences. By the end of the week, the calls became increasingly frequent and desperate. My father called 3 times on Friday alone. On Saturday morning, my mother tried, leaving a voicemail that oscillated between commanding and pleading. Amanda, this childish silent treatment needs to stop. Your father and I raised you better than this. The company is facing some temporary challenges that your expertise could help resolve. That's what family does, they help each other. Michael's attempt came Sunday afternoon, his message clearly scripted by our parents. Hey sis, hope you're doing okay. Look, there's been some complications with a few projects, and we could really use your insight. Dad thought maybe you could come in as a consultant or something, just to help smooth things over during the transition. Call me back. I deleted each message without responding. The time for easy reconciliation had passed. If they wanted my help, they would need to acknowledge the mistake they'd made and offer meaningful change. Monday morning, I met Gregory at his office to continue discussing our potential partnership. He had arranged a meeting with his lawyer to discuss the framework for a new construction management firm that would capitalize on my expertise and his development portfolio. We could make a real impact, Gregory said as we reviewed projections. Your operational systems combined with my properties could create something special. And directly compete with Parker Construction, I noted. Gregory nodded. That's the reality. Is that going to be a problem for you? They are your family. I considered the question carefully. A week ago, I might have said yes. But they made it clear that business comes before family when they chose Michael over me. I need to apply the same principle. Fair enough, Gregory replied. Then let's talk specifics. I have 3 development projects currently in the planning phase that could serve as our initial portfolio. As we discussed details, my phone buzzed repeatedly. I ignored it until Gregory finally said, that might be important. Go ahead and check. 5 missed calls from my father and 3 texts, each more urgent than the last. Victoria Marshall is pulling her contract. Call me immediately. The Brunswick penalties start tomorrow. We need your help. Amanda, please. The company is in serious trouble. Family drama? Gregory asked, noting my expression. The chicken's coming home to roost, I replied, putting my phone away. Let's continue. By the time I returned to my condo that evening, there were 13 missed calls and a flurry of increasingly panicked text messages. The final one, sent just an hour earlier, simply read, I'm coming over. We need to talk. Dad. I had just changed into comfortable clothes when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see my father standing in the hallway, looking disheveled and exhausted. For a moment, I considered not answering. But eventually, I opened the door without greeting him. Thank God, he sighed, pushing past me into the apartment. Why haven't you been answering your phone? We're in crisis mode. Hello to you too, Dad, I said coolly, closing the door. What can I do for you? He paced my small living room, running his hands through his thinning hair. Everything's falling apart, Amanda. Victoria Marshall terminated her contract this morning. We're facing daily penalties on Brunswick Road starting tomorrow. 3 of our best foremen have submitted their resignations. The bank is questioning our cash flow projections with the loss of the Marshall project. That sounds challenging, I said neutrally. He stopped pacing to stare at me. Challenging? It's a disaster. We could lose everything. And what exactly would you like me to do about it? Come back, he exclaimed as if it were obvious. We need you to fix this mess. In what capacity? I asked, my voice level. What does that matter? The company is in trouble. It matters to me, I insisted. Would I be coming back as Michael's subordinate? As a consultant? As what exactly? My father waved his hand dismissively. We can figure out titles later. Right now we need your knowledge and relationships to stabilize things. I shook my head slowly. That's not good enough, Dad. What do you want from me? He demanded, his voice rising. An apology? Fine. I'm sorry we hurt your feelings. Is that what you needed to hear? That's not an apology, I replied. That's a dismissal of my legitimate grievances. And it doesn't address the fundamental problem. Which is what, exactly? That you and Mom never saw me as leadership material despite all evidence to the contrary. That you gave Michael a position he wasn't qualified for because of your outdated notions about who should run a construction company. That you expected me to accept a demotion and be grateful for it. My father's face flushed red. This isn't the time for feminist manifestos, Amanda. The company is at stake here. My point exactly, I said calmly. When it was just my career and future at stake, my concerns could be dismissed. Now that it's affecting the bottom line, suddenly it's a crisis requiring immediate attention. That's not fair. Isn't it? I challenged. For 10 years, I warned about potential problems, implemented solutions, and built systems that kept everything running smoothly. Did you or Mom or Michael ever truly appreciate that work? Or did you just expect it from me while assuming Michael had some magical leadership quality I lacked? My father sank onto my couch, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. I never thought it would fall apart this quickly, he admitted. Everything seemed so stable. It was stable because I made it stable, I said. Those systems don't run themselves. They require someone who understands them and the reasons behind them. So you're enjoying this? He asked bitterly. Watching the company collapse without you? No, I said honestly. I take no pleasure in seeing something I helped build struggle. I care about the employees whose livelihoods depend on Parker Construction. But I won't be taken for granted anymore. What do you want, Amanda? He asked tiredly. Just tell me what it will take to get you back. I want what I've earned, I said simply. Recognition of my abilities and a position that reflects my contributions and capabilities. Meaning what exactly? I think you know. My father stood up, heading for the door. I need to discuss this with your mother and Michael. This isn't a decision I can make unilaterally. Of course, I agreed. But understand this, Dad. I'm meeting with Gregory Winters tomorrow to finalize plans for a new construction management firm. If I don't hear a serious offer from Parker Construction by noon, I'll be signing those papers and becoming your direct competitor. His hand froze on the doorknob. You wouldn't. I absolutely would, I assured him. The choice is yours. After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt completely in control of my destiny. Whatever happened next would be on my terms, not theirs. Early Tuesday morning, I called Eleanor for advice. My father came by last night, practically begging me to return, I explained. The company is in serious trouble. I'm not surprised, Eleanor replied. What did you tell him? That I'd consider returning, but only in a position commensurate with my abilities. I have a meeting with Gregory today about forming a competing firm if Parker doesn't make a serious offer by noon. Smart, she approved. Creating leverage. So, what are your terms? That's what I wanted to discuss with you, I admitted. I need to be clear about what I want. Start with the title, Eleanor advised.
I see.
Yes, I said without hesitation. I won't accept anything less at this point. Good. What about ownership stake? Your parents presumably own the majority currently, with perhaps some distributed to you and Michael? My parents each own 40%. Michael and I each have 10%, I confirmed. You should demand a controlling interest, Eleanor suggested. At least 51%. That's a lot to ask for, I said uncertainly. They're asking you to save the company, Eleanor reminded me. That's worth a controlling stake. Otherwise, you'll be vulnerable to being outvoted on major decisions. You're right, I agreed after consideration. What else? Board representation, she continued, and clear succession planning documentation that can't be easily changed. After finishing with Eleanor, I called Diane Matthews, an attorney who specialized in family business disputes. She agreed to meet me immediately to draft formal terms. These are aggressive terms, Diane noted as we finalized the document. Are you prepared to walk away if they don't agree? Absolutely, I confirmed. I have a viable alternative with Gregory. Then let's make sure this protects you completely, she said, making additional notes. At 11:30, my father called. We've discussed the situation and would like to meet to present our offer, he said, his tone carefully neutral. I have terms of my own, I replied. I've had them drawn up legally. A pause. I see. When and where would you like to meet? We agreed to meet at Salvatore's, an upscale Italian restaurant with private dining rooms, at 1 o'clock. I deliberately chose neutral territory rather than the Parker construction offices. I arrived early, dressed in my most professional suit, my document folder tucked under my arm. My parents and Michael arrived together, all looking tense and underslept. After we were seated in a private room and had ordered drinks, my father cleared his throat. Amanda, your mother and I have discussed the situation extensively. We recognize that your departure has revealed gaps in our operational oversight. My mother nodded stiffly. The company has faced unexpected challenges in your absence. Challenges that were entirely predictable to anyone who understood how the company actually functioned, I noted. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Look, sis, I know I was thrown into the deep end here. I never realized how much you were handling behind the scenes. Which is why, my father continued, we'd like to offer you the position of Chief Operating Officer with an increased ownership stake of 20%, taken from your mother's and my shares. You would report directly to the board rather than to Michael. I took a sip of water, considering how to respond. That's an interesting offer, but it doesn't address the fundamental issue. Which is, my mother asked. Leadership, I said simply. You determined I wasn't leadership material despite all evidence to the contrary. The past week has demonstrated otherwise. We may have been hasty in our assessment, my father conceded grudgingly. I have a counter-proposal, I said, sliding copies of my document across the table. These are my terms for returning to Parker Construction. They each took a copy, and I waited as they read through the pages. My mother gasped audibly at several points. My father's face darkened. Michael, surprisingly, remained impassive. This is outrageous, my mother finally sputtered. CEO position? 51% controlling stake? Michael stepped down to Executive Vice President of Business Development? 2 board seats. Those are my terms, I confirmed calmly. This is highway robbery, my father growled. You're using our temporary difficulties to stage a hostile takeover. I'm establishing terms that reflect my value to the company, I corrected him. Terms that ensure I won't be undermined or dismissed again based on outdated biases. We can't possibly agree to this, my mother insisted. Then I wish you the best of luck, I said, gathering my belongings. I have a meeting with Gregory Winters at 3 o'clock to finalize our new venture. Wait, Michael said suddenly. Can we discuss this rationally for a minute? I paused, surprised by his intervention. Dad, Mom, he continued. Amanda is right. I was given a position I wasn't prepared for. This past week has been a nightmare. I've been drowning in decisions I don't fully understand while watching relationships with clients and suppliers deteriorate. You just need time to adjust, our mother insisted. No, Michael said firmly. I need to be honest about my strengths and weaknesses. Marketing, client relations, business development, those are my strengths. Operations, project management, technical details, those are Amanda's. He turned to me. The Executive VP of Business Development position you've outlined here? That actually sounds perfect for me. I'd be much more effective in that role than trying to oversee everything. My parents stared at him in shock. I'm not saying I agree to every term here, Michael clarified. But the basic structure makes sense. Amanda should be CEO. She's earned it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I need to step outside and call the bank, my father finally said. They're expecting an update on our leadership situation by close of business. And I should check with Victoria Marshall, I added. If we reach an agreement, I may be able to salvage that contract. You can do that? My mother asked sharply. Victoria specifically cited my departure as the reason for terminating the contract. I explained. If I'm returning as CEO, she might reconsider. My parents exchanged glances, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. We need time to discuss this privately, my father said. Of course, I agreed. But I need an answer by 2:30. Otherwise, I'm moving forward with Gregory. I stepped outside to give them privacy, using the time to call Victoria Marshall. Amanda, she answered warmly. I was hoping to hear from you. Have you started your own firm yet? Not yet, I replied. There's a possibility I may return to Parker Construction, but in a different capacity as CEO. Interesting, she said. That would certainly address my primary concern about the medical center project. If that were to happen, I ventured, would you consider reinstating the contract? I would need assurances about project management and oversight, she said carefully. But yes, with you at the helm, we would be open to discussions. Armed with this leverage, I returned to the private dining room. My parents and Michael were seated in tense silence. Victoria Marshall would reconsider the contract if I returned to CEO, I informed them. My father nodded grimly. We've discussed your terms. We're prepared to accept most of them, with some modifications. Which ones? I asked. The ownership stake, he said. 51% is too much. We'll agree to 35%, with your mother and I retaining 30% each, and Michael 5%. I shook my head. That still leaves me vulnerable to being outvoted by you and Mom together. I need a controlling interest. 49%, my mother countered. With a clause requiring a supermajority of 75% for major company decisions. That gives you effective veto power without technically having control. I considered this. I can accept that arrangement, provided the supermajority requirement is legally binding and covers all strategic decisions. It will be, my father assured me. What else? The board composition, my mother said. Instead of you having 2 seats, we propose a 5-person board. You, Michael, your father, and I, and an independent director mutually agreed upon. That's acceptable. I agreed after consideration. Any other changes? Everything else is agreeable, my father said, though his tone suggested the words pained him. CEO title, reporting structure, compensation package. Though we would like a 6-month probationary period. Absolutely not, I said firmly. I'm not coming back on a trial basis after 10 years of proven performance. The appointment is permanent or not at all. My father looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. Fine. No probationary period. Then we have a deal, I said, extending my hand. I'll have my lawyer draft the revised agreement this afternoon. My father hesitated before shaking my hand. When can you start? Tomorrow, I said. We have a lot of fires to put out. As we prepared to leave, Michael pulled me aside. I really am sorry about all this, Amanda. I should have stood up for you from the beginning. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged uncomfortably. It's complicated. Part of me liked the idea of being CEO, even though I knew I wasn't qualified. And part of me has always tried to please Dad. You know that. I do know that, I acknowledged. The question is whether you're genuinely okay with this new arrangement. I am, he said, and seemed sincere. I'll be much happier focusing on what I'm good at, rather than drowning in operations details. Then I look forward to working with you, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. As we left the restaurant, I called Gregory to cancel our meeting. I'm staying with Parker Construction, I explained.
As CEO.
Congratulations, he said, sounding genuinely pleased for me. They finally came to their senses. With significant encouragement, I replied with a smile. That night, as I prepared for my first day as CEO, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: vindication, anxiety, determination, and most surprisingly, optimism. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I would be walking it on my own terms. Wednesday morning, I arrived at Parker Construction headquarters at 6:30 a.m., deliberately early to prepare for what would undoubtedly be a challenging day. The legal documents had been finalized late the previous night, with my lawyer Diane working overtime to incorporate the negotiated changes while ensuring my interests remained protected. As I walked through the quiet office toward what would now be my office, the CEO's office, I felt a strange mix of familiarity and newness. I had been in this building thousands of times, but never with this level of authority and responsibility. Michael had already cleared out his things, leaving the large corner office empty except for the furniture. I set down my bag and took a moment to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city skyline. Several Parker Construction projects were visible from this vantage point, including the now troubled Brunswick Road development. Taking in the view, came my father's voice from the doorway. I turned, surprised to see him so early. Just getting oriented. He nodded, hovering awkwardly at the threshold. The board resolution and ownership transfer documents are ready for signatures. Your mother and I signed last night. Thank you, I said, accepting the folder he extended. I know yesterday was difficult, he said, choosing his words carefully. But I want you to know that despite our disagreements, your mother and I have always been proud of your work ethic and capabilities. Just not enough to make me CEO initially, I observed. He sighed. We made a mistake, Amanda. A costly one. But we're trying to correct it now. I appreciate that, I said, softening slightly. And I'm committed to stabilizing the company and moving us forward successfully. I know you are, he replied. That's why, despite everything, I'm confident we've made the right decision now. It wasn't a full apology or acknowledgement of the gender bias that had influenced their original decision, but it was a start. Rome wasn't built in a day, and deeply ingrained attitudes wouldn't change overnight. By 8 o'clock, the office was buzzing with energy and speculation. I had emailed all employees the previous evening announcing the leadership change, but email couldn't capture the nuances of such a significant transition. At 9, I called an all-staff meeting in the large conference room. Employees filed in, many offering smiles and words of encouragement. I noticed my mother slip in at the back, her expression unreadable. Michael took a seat in the front row, giving me a supportive nod. Good morning, everyone. I began once the room had settled. As you know, there have been some significant changes in leadership at Parker Construction. I want to take this opportunity to address those changes directly and share my vision for our path forward. I outlined the new organizational structure, emphasizing that Michael would be focusing on business development and client relationships areas where his skills could truly shine. The past week has been challenging, I acknowledged. Some projects have fallen behind schedule. Some client relationships have been strained. Some of our systems have faltered. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. But Parker Construction has been a pillar of this community for over 30 years, and that isn't going to change. What will change is how we address these immediate challenges and position ourselves for long-term success. I outlined my immediate priorities: salvaging the Marshall Medical Center contract, addressing the Brunswick Road project delays, and stabilizing supplier relationships. I'll be meeting with department heads throughout the day to develop specific action plans, I concluded. But I want everyone to know that my door is open. You are the lifeblood of this company, and your insights and concerns matter to me. After the meeting, Thomas approached me with a grin. About damn time, he said quietly. The crews will be relieved to hear you're back. Thanks, Thomas. Can you gather the site foreman for a meeting this afternoon? We need to address Brunswick Road immediately. Already scheduled, he assured me. My next priority was calling Victoria Marshall. Victoria, it's Amanda Parker. I wanted to let you know that the leadership transition we discussed has been finalized. I'm now CEO of Parker Construction. That's excellent news, she replied warmly. I take it you're calling about our terminated contract. I am. I'd like to meet to discuss reinstating it, with some additional guarantees regarding project management and oversight. I think that can be arranged, she agreed. My schedule is open this afternoon. Perfect. I'll come to your office at 2. The rest of the morning was a whirlwind of meetings, calls, and decisions. I met with our accounting team to address the cash flow concerns that had arisen with the tightened supplier credit terms. I reviewed the Brunswick Road project schedule with Thomas and the site foreman, identifying critical path items that needed immediate attention. Michael stopped by around noon, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in weeks. How's it going so far? Busy, I admitted. There's a lot to address. I bet, he agreed. Listen, I've been thinking about the West Side renovation project. I think I might have a solution for the budget issues they've been having. To my surprise, his idea was actually quite good, leveraging a relationship with a local supplier to get preferred pricing on materials. It was the kind of creative business development thinking he excelled at. That's excellent, Michael. Can you put together a proposal and we'll review it tomorrow? Already working on it, he assured me. My father kept his distance for most of the day, though I noticed him observing from afar. My mother, however, made her presence known around 3 o'clock, appearing in my doorway with a stack of financial reports. These projections need to be updated, she said without preamble, dropping them on my desk. They don't account for the week of disruption.
I'm aware, he replied evenly.
Nancy in accounting is already working on revised projections. I'll have them for the executive meeting tomorrow. See that you do, she said stiffly, turning to leave. Mom, I called after her. She paused but didn't turn around. This transition will be smoother if we can work together constructively. She nodded once, sharply, and continued out. It would take time for her to adjust to the new dynamics, perhaps more time than it would take my father. Her pride had been wounded, and that wasn't something easily healed. By the end of that first day, I had successfully negotiated the reinstatement of the Marshall Medical Center contract with enhanced terms that actually improved our profit margin. I had developed a recovery plan for the Brunswick Road project that would minimize penalty fees. And I had personally called our top 5 suppliers to restore the favorable credit terms we had previously enjoyed. It was after 8 p.m. when I finally gathered my things to leave, exhausted but satisfied with the progress made. As I walked toward the parking garage, I found my father waiting beside my car. Long first day, he observed. Very, I agreed. But productive. Victoria Marshall called me, he said. She was impressed with the recovery plan you presented. Said it was more comprehensive than what she initially expected. We can't afford to lose that contract, I said simply. No, we can't, he agreed. Then, after a pause, you did good today, Amanda. Thank you, I replied, the simple acknowledgement meaning more than I expected. 6 months later, Parker Construction had not only stabilized but was thriving under my leadership. The Brunswick Road project had recovered from its early delays and was now on schedule for completion. The Marshall Medical Center was progressing smoothly, with Victoria so pleased she had referred 2 additional healthcare clients to us. Michael had found his groove in business development, securing 3 major new contracts by leveraging his natural charm and networking abilities. Free from the operational responsibilities that had overwhelmed him, he was actually proving to be a valuable asset to the company. My father had gradually adjusted to the new power dynamic, occasionally offering advice, but generally respecting my authority as CEO. My mother remained somewhat distant professionally, though our personal relationship had begun to thaw slightly. The most significant change, however, was in the company culture. With clear leadership and transparent communication, employee morale had improved dramatically. The systems I had implemented were running smoothly again, with additional refinements that increased efficiency even further. One Friday afternoon, after a particularly successful quarterly review meeting, my father asked if I would join him for a drink at the bar across from our offices. It was the first such invitation since the leadership change. "I owe you an apology," he said once we were seated with our drinks. "A real one, not the half-hearted attempts I've made before." "I'm listening," I said, surprised by his directness. "You were right," he admitted. "We passed you over because of outdated notions about who should run a construction company. We couldn't see past our own biases to recognize that you were already demonstrating the leadership qualities we claimed you lacked." "Thank you for acknowledging that," I said sincerely. "The company is performing better than it ever has under your leadership," he continued. "The numbers don't lie. You've increased margins, improved efficiency, and strengthened our reputation in the industry." "It's been a team effort," I noted. "Michael has excelled in his new role, and your experience has been valuable. But it's your vision driving it all," he insisted. "I was wrong about you, Amanda. You are leadership material. You always were." Hearing those words brought an unexpected lump to my throat. Despite all the professional success of the past 6 months, part of me had still been seeking this validation from my father. Better late than never, I suppose, I managed with a small smile. "Much later than it should have been," he agreed ruefully. "But I hope you know that I'm proud of you, professionally and personally." As we finished our drinks and walked back toward the office, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From dedicated VP to dismissed daughter to triumphant CEO, it had been a roller coaster of emotions and challenges. The lesson had been painful but clear. Sometimes walking away is necessary to be truly valued. By refusing to accept less than I deserved, I had forced a recognition of my worth that might never have come otherwise. In the lobby of our building, my father paused before we parted ways. "Your mother mentioned you're having dinner with them on Sunday?" "I am," I confirmed. "Michael will be there too. You should join us." "I'd like that," he said with a genuine smile. As I rode the elevator back to my office, I thought about that desperate day when my father had shown up at my apartment, begging for help. When he had asked what it would take to bring me back, I had simply said, "I'll come back, but only as CEO. Take it or leave it." Sometimes standing your ground is the only way to move forward. Have you ever had to walk away from something you valued to make others recognize your worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you handled similar situations in your work or family life. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more true stories about standing up for yourself. Remember, knowing your value isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the courage to demand what you deserve in your own life.